We will now bring in Josh Hill.
Bye, everybody.
Who is Fansided's editor, to talk about more of A Song of Ice and Fire, our weekly read-through of A Song of Ice and Fire. We're still on A Game of Thrones, the first book in the series. Go through it chapter by chapter. I've read all the books multiple times. Josh has never read the books. We're just going to hit them up and kind of break it down, see what insights we can find. Josh, you were gone last week.
I was.
How was your... Were you just off, or?
It was a day off. I didn't have the flu again. Last time I was not here.
Right,
I had
you
the
did.
flu.
Forgot about that.
Although I did listen to Take the Black
that's sweet.
on iTunes.
Where?
iTunes.
Oh,
that's right. This show's on iTunes, right?
It is on iTunes.
I wasn't sure.
A little birdie told me you can go and subscribe and then download and rate it 5 stars, but I don't want to tell that at school. Anyway, we are here to talk about A Song of Ice and Fire, A Game of Thrones. We read 2 chapters to discuss today. We got Eddard VIII, who, by the way, is like racking up these chapters really, really quickly.
Yeah.
He's by far the biggest, the person with the most chapters dedicated to him.
Yeah.
And Catelyn VI. I also noticed that Eddard chapters are getting really short. I like to have the next one, too. This one was like 6-7 pages. The next one was like 7-8 pages. It's like this book is so centered around him that it's almost like we have an Eddard chapter and then a couple other ones, then back to Eddard. It always circles back to him.
Yeah.
Which, again, is all part of that magic I've talked about, where it tricks you into thinking he's the hero because he's obviously the main through line, and then bam, he's dead.
I know. I love, too, because like these chapters do start feeling shorter, and you almost don't notice. I mean, it's I guess maybe I might be reading into this too much, but we're getting close to the end of his story, and it's like things are starting to speed up. So his chapters are getting shorter, his time in the story is running out and everything like that. So I kind of like that. And also they pack a lot of information into these shorter chapters. And I don't know, I was trying to remember if it was just short or if it went by quickly, because we learned, it seemed like a lot was happening. And we just kind of burned right through it, because it's like some of these chapters, they plot
It was
along.
short. I counted the page. It's like, this is shorter than usual.
But it did kind of hum along, because we got, stuff about, we hear Jorah, and we got stuff in here about Daenerys and assassinations, and it was all boom, boom, boom out, and I liked it. Yeah, I like that idea that the Eddard chapters get shorter as the momentum builds, because it's like any, I don't know, like any roller coaster. The closer you get to the point of excitement, kind of the tenser it gets, and the more it makes you want to read, I think. Yeah. It's like the Da Vinci Code, where the chapters are really, really short, and you can just like breathe through and feel really good about it. Anyway, in this chapter, though, you mentioned we heard a lot of things, heard about Jorah, heard about Daenerys. I put down here that this is really one of the last times in a good long while where Daenerys' adventures in Essos play into the King's Landing stuff in a real way. Like, this whole chapter is talking about, should we kill Daenerys? We know she's pregnant with the Dothraki. They're talking about it. They're debating it. That's basically the whole thing. They're just debating whether they should do this. It's the entire chapter. And it's another example of that kind of tying the whole room together, bringing the whole world together in a way that we can understand it. Yeah. Which, again, once the war breaks out and people don't really have time to think what's happening with this lady kind of over here, they just kind of start to focus on, we need to beat Stannis, or we need to beat Joffrey, all that stuff. So it's good to have this here. But beyond just that being nice and the world being tied together, let's talk about the debate itself, because there are perspectives on both sides here. So King Robert wants Daenerys dead because he fears what would happen if she crosses the Narrow Sea with an army, or rather Viserys, I guess, with an army and takes back the kingdom. Ned does not want that to happen, Barristan Selmy, because he doesn't want to kill a young girl. Yeah. Whose side are you on? Do they both have points? What are their points? Can you untangle this web of moral ambiguity? The one thing I took away from this, and I think you made this note, was that honor was not a good thing in this. Like, Ned was the most honorable person.
He was.
Out of this entire debate. And what purpose did it serve? He's, again, we kind of what you've been saying, like, we think he's the hero, we think he's making the right call. This is, and it's just like, what's the deal here? Because it's all about, it kind of reminded me of...
By the way, say hello to the people.
Oh, I forgot. Hello. It's not that I dislike everybody. I was just so amped up about iTunes and Take the Black. I forgot. So you can subscribe on iTunes.
Hi, Margaret. Hi, Emma.
And I'll say hi.
Hi, Julie. To everybody, yes.
Julie, hello. But at the debate at hand, no, it reminded me of modern politics a little bit, where we have this debate about something very simple that becomes very, very complicated by everybody having their own opinion and everybody not always having the right opinion, and it kind of dilutes the whole debate. And to me, and Ned was kind of like trying to be the straight arrow. He's trying to be that politician who is like, I'm always going to cut through all the BS. And you have everybody else who's playing the game, trying to get to what they want. And it just kind of reminded me of like a modern Congress or something like that, where it's this messy thing and there's no real right answer. And even the guy who does the right thing ends up being wrong, or wrong for him. So that's...
Well, I mean, his position is pretty easy to understand.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to kill Daenerys because he doesn't approve of killing like 13-year-old girls, assassinating 13-year-old girls. It's pretty defensible, I'd say.
Yeah.
And the arguments against are, I think Varys has like a quote, or maybe Pycelle. It's just a, should war come again, how many soldiers will die, how many towns will burn, how many children will be ripped from their mothers to perish at the end of a spear, which is very graphic. And that's basically the debate they're having.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a way to make the honorable point in a way that they would listen to it?
I don't think so. I think that they're so set in their ways of this unborn child is going to be the scourge of the earth,
danger.
Or the scourge of Westeros, I guess. And it's just, I don't think that there was any changing their mind, even if Ned came up with.
I mean, Robert was kind of. I felt like Varys and Littlefinger and Pycelle were all. No, Varys and Pycelle were basically on team kill Daenerys.
Yeah.
Barristan was on Ned's side. He was on we don't kill little girls.
Yeah.
And Robert was like in the middle, because Robert was that kind of true warrior dude back in the day, and now he's more of a bureaucrat type, and he's okay with doing this. So he's, it's kind of got like Varys on the devil side, Ned on the angel side, and they're trying to talk them back and forth. Yeah. If you want to assign moralistic values to what they're talking about.
Yeah, and like relating it to like a modern Congress thing, I thought of like Robert as like the war veteran, or like the John McCain or something like that, where it's like you've lived this life as the warrior and trying to do the honorable thing, and now you're kind of wheeling and dealing. You're unsure of what to do.
As John McCain, I like it.
Yeah, so and that's kind of how I interpreted all of that, and like, there's no reason. I'm obviously with Ned.
Sure.
We're not going to kill a pregnant woman. So that's...
By the way, I have one other point I want to bring up to you. Also, Julie has a question. Are you available on iTunes? And the answer is yes. We are available on iTunes. You should download, subscribe, rate us 5 stars, and leave reviews. Tell your friends. Yes. Good question, Julie. One other point I had about this is that we're talking about how to find a middle path through not killing this innocent girl, but also maybe killing her to prevent future catastrophe. Who finds the middle path, in a way, is Littlefinger. Yeah. Because his suggestion is they want to hire a faceless man, which, by the way, is kind of cool, because we get the mention of the faceless men years before they show up, like books before they show up, which would definitely work, because they're really good at that. That's their whole gig, is assassinating. And Littlefinger suggests, no, it's too expensive. Let's just put out a bounty on her head. And he explains to Ned later that by doing that, he's making a situation where some idiot's probably going to try and kill Daenerys for the bounty, and they're going to fail. And then that'll actually make her less likely to be killed, because then they'll be under their guard, which, by the way, is exactly what happens. So is that a good move he made? Is that the way it could have been gone down? Doing something skeevy to achieve an honorable result. Yeah, and that's Littlefinger's MO, doing something skeevy for, I guess, a result, not necessarily always an honorable result. He has ulterior motives as to why he's doing that. But that was actually a great suggestion. It really was, when he explains it. Buys everybody time. Because Ned's just like a hardliner guy. It's like, let's not kill her. But it's also getting him, Robert fires him, basically, here. He says, you're not the Hand anymore. If he'd gone this route and just... He could still get the result he wants, which is Daenerys not assassinated, but he could do it in a way that doesn't get him banished off the council, which is what Littlefinger does. So another example of how he's just not thinking the way you're supposed to think in this kind of politically quagmire-ish environment.
His head's not in the game, so
his head's in a different game, yeah.
And this was Littlefinger's thing. This is why Littlefinger's always a couple of steps ahead of everybody, especially Ned, because he is always thinking that way. He knows how to play the game. So, and I wasn't surprised by that. It almost makes you hate Littlefinger a little bit more.
But why? He found the right way to do it.
He did, but he's just a slimy character, and it's like you don't want that guy to be right. You're like, oh,
that's unfair.
Dang, I mean, why?
I think you should reward results.
But not when Littlefinger does them.
You're biased.
I'm gonna pick and choose.
With goatees.
I am. I hate goatees.
Fair enough.
That's why you get the nice beard going.
Yeah, I guess I don't.
You get rid of the sides. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this anymore.
iTunes subscribe now, says Julie. I agree, Julie. And at the very end, there's a little cliffhanger. I think Littlefinger says, "I'll take you to meet the whorehouse where one of Robert's bastard daughters is." So that's a cliffhanger there. We'll pick it up in a minute. Let's move on to Catelyn VI, which is a much longer chapter and it's less packed. Okay, my main takeaway from this was how much was spent on walking from point A to point B. I was reading through it, and a lot of it is descriptions of the Vale. So this chapter is Catelyn's at the mountains of the Vale at the start, and she wants to get to the Eyrie, take Tyrion there to put him on trial in front of her sister Lysa and her crazy breastfeeding child.
Yeah.
But a lot of the chapter is just her walking through. I think I wrote it down. Yeah, blah blah blah. Is cantering through verdant greenwood and sleepy little hamlets. There are 4 straight pages of her climbing the mountains to get to the Eyrie. I guess my questions for you are, A, did you even realize watching the show that there is like a kind of valley floor part of the Vale?
No.
Because I feel like people who watch the show, or even that read the books, that they just think it's all mountains.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
Which is what we see on the show. They cut out all this bit.
Yeah, that took me by surprise a little bit, because I was like, oh, it kind of like made it seem more daunting than it was. Not that like a mountain isn't like this incredibly daunting thing, but it's like the peaks and valleys, this whole journey that you have to, because it's like very much indicated that Lysa went up to this castle thing that she has.
Right.
So, and it is basically to be like to go into hiding essentially. So this whole journey through this area where it's treacherous to try to get to her,
I like that.
Kind of set that up where it kind of reinforced her insanity to me, that she would go and put this
she'd
between,
hide herself in this
herself in the world. She would put this thing between her. It's like it only reinforced the insanity, and then we meet her and
clearly
she's insane.
That's a good point. I actually hadn't thought of that. I was trying to think of like, why is there all this description of like the in-between travel bit of it? But you're right. I mean, if we want to underline the fact that how isolated she is and how hard it is to get to her, which I mean, she does claim to be afraid of the Lannisters, so she's hiding out. That long passage of, I mean, there are 4 pages of her ascending the mountain with this Maya character, like going up in her donkey, going through each of the 3 way castles, getting in a little basket, the winch, and being hauled up there. There's a lot of it.
Yeah.
And you're right. That's a good point. It illustrates just how hard it is to get to the Eyrie, and that could be important in terms of an army can't get there. It's going to be tough. That could be, I mean, it could be a plot later, but so far it really hasn't.
Yeah.
Interesting to me. See, what else did I have for you from this chapter, Josh?
It was also kind of like a comparison of Lysa and Catelyn.
Okay.
As far as with Catelyn and Bran.
Oh, good point.
She kind of got crazy. And
she did kind of get crazy.
That whole fever dream thing that she had, and she snapped out of it, and then she went to King's Landing, and she's like trying to be proactive about it. Whereas her sister or whatever, this Lysa,
it's her sister,
her sister, basically hid in the mountains and is breastfeeding her child, who is older than Bran in this, or no, Rickon, right? I think it's
older than Rickon, definitely.
Rickon,
I think it's about Bran's age.
About Bran's age. So is that kind of
too old? Is the takeaway from that?
Well, she was like even like Rickon is half this age, and he's already more mature than your breastfeeding man-child. So like that to me was like the juxtaposition of Catelyn snapping out of her kind of insanity and going and doing something about it, and then we have on the other side her sister, same bloodline, doing the opposite thing, hiding in the mountains, being a helicopter parent to the nth degree, and just kind of going nuts. So I liked that was kind of there. And it almost, to me, Catelyn maybe realized that. She was like, geez, like, this is
she was
nuts.
unexpecting that.
Yeah. So and it kind of helped me with Catelyn's character come around to flesh her out a little bit more to me, that she's kind of realizing there's a lot out there. And it also reinforced to me that the Starks are better than some people, I would say, because they were looking at it, and because with the Ned chapter, Ned's always 2 steps behind and turning down the wrong corner.
Right.
Whereas here, it kind of reminded us that the Starks aren't just bumbling out of their depth over their skis fools. They are a pretty decent, well put together people, and this was kind of like a very stark reminder of it. So
that pun comes up a lot in these discussions. Yeah, I like that a lot. I hadn't thought of comparing Lysa and what's his name, Robin, to Catelyn and Bran, but it makes a lot of sense. Do you think it's exploitative or grotesque to have the breastfeeding aspect? Because that's one of those things from season 1 where they got a lot of attention. Like the incest, the child pushing out a window, the horse beheading. Now there's a lady breastfeeding her 8-year-old son. It's one of those this is a different kind of TV show.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any element of grotesquerie to it, or just a interesting character detail?
Well, when compared to the incest and all that, I think I
guess it fits right in.
This is low. This is low on the list of shocking things. I think there's a debate about the age in which you stop breastfeeding somebody in there, but
too old.
George R.R. Martin attempted to have this in 1997, and we're still talking about it. So
he did. I mean, it's fun. She's like a freaky, monstrous, weird lady. It's immediately arresting, and immediately makes her interesting character.
Now,
poor kid though.
TV spoilers, and I think that I was right.
Go ahead.
This is who Littlefinger, somebody kicks out of the moon door, right?
Yes.
Okay.
He will push her out the moon door eventually. Also, he's described as fuller figured and a little bigger and heftier in the book. That she's thinner in the show. I think the word on that was they cast the actor, and they were looking for someone a little fatter, but she just kind of had the desperation going, which is the more important thing about the character. So that worked out.
She was very vividly what I was picturing.
Yeah, definitely.
Well done by HBO.
Speaking of other characters, we actually met quite a few new ones in here. Do you remember Brynden the Blackfish Tully?
Blackfish, yeah.
Yeah, Catelyn's uncle.
Yep.
In the show, we meet him in the 3rd season. He's the guy who, when Edmure can't fire the flaming arrow to light his dad's Viking ship boat, he takes one, just let me do it, you idiot, and does it. He shows up here a lot earlier.
Okay.
Kind of a solid guy.
Yeah.
You have any impressions of him?
No, I recognized the name, so that kind of stuck out to me.
A good sounding board for Catelyn.
Yeah.
Bronn, I feel like Bronn's coming into view here. It's like the kind that we know him.
Yep.
Courage he had and strength, but there was no kindness in him and little loyalty. And she had seen him riding behind Lannister far too often, talking in low voices and laughing at some private joke, which again is right from the show. I think it's pretty accurate. And finally, the last thing we end on is this character who's not in the show, named Maya Stone, who appears in the book a few times. She's the kind of the lady Sherpa who brings Catelyn up to the thing. And a little bit of trivia. I don't know if this has become important in the book. She's not in the show. She is another one of Robert Baratheon's bastards.
Oh. Huh.
Another of hers, because he was fostered at the Eyrie when he was younger, 16, and he was up to his old tricks even back then, and had this girl a long time ago. But it's just a detail. It never becomes important. It's just,
I would hope not. The show just kind of skipped over this important detail.
I mean, the show skips over some pretty big things. Not now. Right now, it's pretty sticking to it. But that's a little interesting detail there. And again, we although it makes you think, we did spend a lot of time with her in those 4 pages. Maybe she will come back. I have no idea.
Maybe.
Anyway, any other thoughts on these 2 chapters, Josh?
No, I did like kind of the continuation of this Catelyn coming around to Tyrion narrative that's been going on.
Yeah,
because it's fun. She was, had him arrested in this tavern or this pub that they were in, and now it's slowly becoming. And I think it was important, the mention of Littlefinger and the dagger and all that kind of stuff, and her coming around to the idea that Tyrion is maybe not that bad, which in the larger sense is you've got a Stark coming around to seeing a Lannister is not that bad.
Good point.
So that was I like that. we kind of all know where
it goes. I see what you're saying. I mean, also, let's qualify, like, not that bad, but still bad enough that she wants to try him for the assassination of Bran.
Yeah.
So she's not like all the way far gone.
She feels bad about it.
I feel like she feels a little. She has some doubts now.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a one part where she's like, maybe he didn't do it, because it's starting to feel like it doesn't quite line up.
Yeah, and I wonder how much Lysa and her craziness will play into Catelyn kind of softening her stance, because maybe that was a reinforcement of, I'm going a little too hard in the paint here. I'm being a little bit rough. Maybe I'm not thinking clearly. This is what happens to you when you go totally off the deep end and just assume everything that's the worst thing is the worst thing.
I like that a lot.
Maybe that'll kind of soften her up a little bit. But
that's great. Like Lysa as like a kind of a funhouse mirror version of Catelyn. I hadn't really thought about it, but this is a book. Literary devices, always fun. Yeah. Anyway, next week I think we should read the next Eddard chapter, and then I believe a Daenerys chapter. She like if Eddard has like all the chapters, Daenerys has like very few. So when she shows up, it's always interesting.
Well, looking forward to it.
Yeah, next week we'll be back.
And we'll say hi next week.
A Song of Ice and, you better. A Song of Ice and Fire news, Game of Thrones news, more of A Song of Dan and Josh. Back next week, Wednesday at 4 o'clock. And between now and then, my recommendation is we are on iTunes in podcast form.
All right.
You can subscribe, download, rate us 5 stars. Be great. I mean, yeah.
I'd rate us 5 stars.
I would too. I like us. And if you want to leave a review, that'd be great too. And thanks for watching, guys. We will see you back here at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time next Wednesday. Have a good night.